This video brought to you by jadedpainting.com. If you need your miniatures painted to a tabletop standard, check out jadedpainting.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of my very in-depth review of the new Eldar Codex. Today, for this part, I'm going to be talking about the psychic powers. Now, as most of you are probably well aware, Eldar are all about psychic powers. In 4th and 5th edition, basically any powerful list of Eldar contained a Farseer, or Eldrad. And they rolled 3 dice. They always took the 2 lowest. And even if they perilled, Eldrad, they had the Ghost Helm, so then they avoided the perils on a 3+. And when they changed psychic powers for 6th edition, Eldar became very powerful psychers since they, number one, they had runes of witnessing, so they pretty much passed all the time. They had runes of warding, which just one little Farseer in the corner of the table would prevent any psychic power from going off most of the time. And even if they perilled, as I said, they had Ghost Helm. So I was very curious as to how this new codex would adjust their psychic powers. And my overall summation of it was that they made some powers amazing, nerfed a couple others, but they changed the big core things that the special rules were in the psychic powers of the Eldar. Specifically, Ghost Helm, Runes of Warding, and Runes of Witnessing. So first of all, we'll go over the psychic powers, and then I'll go over Runes of Warding, Runes of Witnessing, and Ghost Helm. So, the new psychic powers for Eldar, they're divided into 2 groups, Runes of Battle and Runes of Fate. Now, Runes of Battle is only available to Warlocks, and I believe the Spirit one of the other Seers, but pretty much just Warlocks in general will get the Runes of Battle, while the Farseers and Eldrad will get Runes of Fate. And Runes of Battle is very interesting, because Runes of Battle, there's a duality to Runes of Battle. It's both offensive and defensive at the same time, depending on how you want to use it. So as always, there are 6 powers, and a Primaris power. All of the Runes of Battle, since they're going to Warlocks and they're typically lower number of psychic powers per turn, right? Because they are the lower mastery levels. They're all Warp Charge 1. So we'll begin with the Primaris power. And as I said, each one has an offensive component or a defensive component, depending on which one you want to use per turn. So the Primaris power is called Conceal/Reveal. Conceal is a blessing that targets the Psyker. Well, this power in effect, the Psyker has Shrouded. So pretty cool, you can make yourself Shrouded. Versus Reveal, which is a malediction, and it targets a single enemy unit within 18 inches. And while the power is in effect, all models in the unit lose their stealth or Shrouded. So that's pretty cool. So you can either shroud yourself or remove the shrouding from your opponent, depending on what you want to do per turn. Pretty cool. If you roll a 1, it's called Destructor/Renewer. Destructor is a Witchfire power with the following profile: range template, strength 5, AP 4, assault 1, soul blaze. Versus Renewer, which is a blessing that targets a single friendly unit within 18 inches. One model of your choice in that target unit immediately regains a wound lost earlier in the battle. A slain model cannot be returned to play by this fashion. So that's pretty good. So if you want to, if you're down to 1 wound on Eldrad, for example, and you want to give him back that wound, you can with your Warlock. That's pretty cool stuff. Number 2 is Embolden/Horrify. Embolden is a blessing that targets the Psyker. Whilst the power is in effect, the Psyker and his unit have the Fearless special. That's great. Fearless is always great. Versus Horrify, which is a malediction that targets a single enemy unit within 18 inches. All models in the target unit suffer a -3 modifier to leadership. This is great when combined with some of the other psychic powers I find that target leadership, such as Mind Warp. It's pretty sweet. So essentially, as you can notice, that one's the opposite of the other. One buffs you guys, and the other one ruins your opponent in the exact opposite fashion. Number 3, Enhance/Drain. Enhance is a blessing that targets the Psyker. Whilst the power is in effect, the Psyker and his unit have +1 weapon skill and initiative. So that's pretty good. Drain is a malediction that targets a single enemy unit within 18 inches. Whilst the power is in effect, all models in the target have -1 weapon skill and -1 to initiative. The exact opposite. Pretty cool. Number 4 is called Protect/Jinx. Protect is a blessing that targets the Psyker. Whilst the power is in effect, the Psyker and his unit have their armor saves improved by 1 to a maximum of 2+. That's pretty sweet. So it makes your 3 plus fire dragons, makes them Terminators. Can't go wrong with that. Versus Jinx, which is of course the opposite. It targets an enemy unit within 18 inches, and that squad or unit has its armor save decreased by 1. Right? You can actually remove armor save. So if this does on orcs, for example, orcs is getting an armor save. Of course, most things shooting orcs don't get an armor save anyway. So that's pretty cool. You can make Terminators, Space Marines, Old Eldar. Orcs with armor save. It's pretty cool. Next one, Quicken / Restrain. So by the name, you can pretty much tell it's about movement. Quicken is a blessing. Whilst this power doesn't affect the Psyker and his unit, run an additional 3 inches. So D6 plus 3. Versus Restrain, which is a malediction that targets a single enemy unit within 18 inches. And while the power's effect, they cannot run. So, exact opposites. Perfect. And number 6, Empower / Innervate. Empower is a blessing that targets the Psyker. Whilst the power's in effect, the Psyker and his unit have +1 strength. Innervate, malediction, 18 inches. While the power's in effect, enemy unit has -1 strength. So what I really like about these Runes of Battle is the duality. It gives you so many potential strategies. And it's just awesome to be able to ruin your opponent while simultaneously being able to buff yourself. And being an opponent, it's going to be very hard to predict what you want to do, because certain times you may want to buff yourself, sometimes you want to ruin your enemy. So it's a very interesting set of psychic powers. I really like that. It's very interesting. And versus Runes of Fate. Now you're going to find the old Big Four psychic powers that Eldrad used to use in the Runes of Fate. So not a lot has changed there. Obviously the Big Four used to be Guide, Doom, Fortune, and Mind War. And so we're going to go through Runes of Fate. Now Guide is Warp Charge 1. And Mind War and Guide and Doom are still Warp Charge 1, but Fortune and Mind War are going to be Warp Charge 2 now. But that's not going to be that bad, since Farseers have now gained 2 mastery levels for free. Now they are a lot more expensive. I'll be going over that in my HQ selection review, which will be next. And so it's going to be a little different, but so we'll go through them. So the Primaris power is Guide, and that's okay. The only thing is, Eldar do have access to telepathy, and I believe so. Just double check. They should have access to telepathy, and if they do, to me, Guide is just the same as Prescience, right? Because we'll just double check here. Let's see. Benjamin. Here we go. Eldrad. Yep, they have access to divination, that's what I'm going to say. Not to telepathy, divination. They also have access to telepathy. But divination, and the thing is, divination, the base power for divination is Prescience, or Science. And so that alone is Guide, so they're the same thing. Number 1 is Executioner. This is a very interesting one. It's a focused Witchfire. So of course if you roll a 5 or less on your psychic test, you get to choose the model, otherwise it's random. And it's 24-inch range. The target suffers 3 hits. So you choose a model, and if not, it'll be a random model, in a squad. That model receives 3 hits at the strength of the Farseer, but has Fleshbane. So that's the strength is just for purposes of instant death, and it wounds on a 2+ automatically because of Fleshbane. Now, if the target is removed from play as a result, right? So if it dies, so you do 3 wounds to an Orc Boy, for example, or a Knob, for example, and it dies as a result of those 3 wounds, nominate another model beside it, and that model receives 2 wounds. And if it dies as a result of that, you nominate another model, and that model receives another wound. And that's pretty cool. Now, if the Farseer has chosen the first target, he gets to choose 2 and 3. But if he didn't choose 2 and number 1, if it ends up being random, so if he rolls higher than a 5 on a psychic test, it's random each time. That makes sense. Number 2 is Doom. Doom is still Doom. Reroll to wound. Yeah. But now, Doom has gotten a buff. If the target is a vehicle, All failed armor penetration rolls made against it can be re-rolled while the power is in effect. So you can doom vehicles now and do some real damage to them because you have to re-roll penetrations. That's pretty awesome. Number 3 is Eldritch Storm. It's a Witchfire with the following profile: 24-inch range, strength 3, AP minus, assault 1, haywire, fleshbane, large blast, and pinning. So essentially, that will do a lot of damage to most things. It has haywire, so it's going to do damage to vehicles because the odds are it will glance or pen a vehicle. And it has fleshbane, meaning it will wound anything on a 2+, despite the fact it's strength 3, and it's a large blast. So it will do a lot of damage. Oh, you have a vehicle there. Bye-bye. Oh, you have a guy there. He's wounded. It's pretty cool. And that's a warp charge 2. Number 4 is Death Mission, also warp charge 2. Death Mission is a blessing power that targets the Farseer, plays D3 plus 2 Death Mission counters next to your Farseer. Now this is very interesting. Well, there is at least one Death Mission counter next to the Farseer. He gains the Fearless and Rampage special rules and gains several bonuses to his characteristic profile as shown below. So the Death Mission bonus is, note that his special rules and unit type are unaffected. So, at the end of each phase, roll a d6. On a score of 1, 2, or 3, the Death Mission fades. Remove one Death Mission counter from the Farseer. On a score of 4 or more, the Death Mission continues unabated. Don't remove a counter. And you get +5 weapon skill, +5 ballistic skill, +5. That's insane. So, that's just crazy. +5 initiative and +2 attacks. So Eldrad is going to be striking at initiative 10 with 4 attacks, 5 in the charge, 5 attacks, weapon skill 10. That's insane. However, if at any point there are no Death Mission counters next to the Farseer or the game ends, the Death Mission ceases. The Farseer is removed from play as a casualty and awards victory points as normal for the mission being played. So, if at any point there are no Death Mission counters next to the Farseer or the game ends, the Death Mission ceases, the Farseer is removed from play. That's pretty crazy. While its Death Mission lasts, the Farseer cannot manifest other psychic powers. He can, however, manifest Death Mission again while it is still in effect. If he does so, add D3 plus 2 Death Mission counters to him. Wow. That is an interesting power. It's very distinct. He can die. He's on a Death Mission. I guess that makes sense. He's going to die no matter what. Very interesting. So that's guaranteed to give your opponent the Slay the Warlord trait. If your Psyker is your Warlord, like Eldrad. That's a very, very interesting power. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section down below. Next is Fortune. Fortune, of course, is Fortune. Right. But you also get to re-roll your Deny the Witch rolls. That's pretty sweet. That's pretty cool. And Mind Warp. So, back to Fortune. You get to re-roll saving throws and re-roll failed Deny the Witch rolls. And finally, Mind War. Your leadership against your opponent's leadership. You roll off for every one that you beat him by, he takes a wound that you get normal saves against. No armor saves. Yes. No armor saves or cover saves are allowed against the wounds caused by Mind War, but you can still use invulnerable saves. So that's pretty good. So that's a very interesting set of psychic powers. They're very special. Of course, 4 of them are the same, slightly buffed, so they're cool. But now we must get to the 3 big. It's Ghost Helm, Runes of Witnessing, Runes of Warding. Now, Runes of Warding used to mean that your opponent, regardless of where he was on the table, had to roll 3d6, and if he perilled, automatically rolled 12 or more than 12. So that was very likely, and many opponents would stop trying the second test because of this capability, because it was on the entire table. Now it is gone. Now Runes of Warding is just a simple. It's just a simple one-time that you get to, one time during the game, that you get to Deny the Witch on a 2+ for a psychic power. That's it. So that's pretty cool, but it's not as strong as it once was, right? Because it used to be much more powerful. But yeah, and then there's runes of witnessing. Runes of witnessing, which used to allow you to roll 3d6, take the two lowest, and it would basically make you pass a lot. It's now been nerfed to a one-time use where you get to reroll a failed leadership check or psychic test, which isn't bad as well, but it's just that. And finally, Ghost Helm, which used to negate perils on a 3+. Now it negates perils by you expending or spending a psychic test, right? So you get, each power costs a certain number of points to cast, warp charge, and you get to, if you just take away a warp charge, you get to avoid the perils, which is sweet, but unfortunately what happens if you peril on your last psychic power, you're out of luck, or it will also probably prevent you from rolling other powers, right? Because if you're on your second last power, you spend your warp charge and then you lose your last power. So it really does matter now your order of operations of your psychic powers. So and the problem is, like Guide, for example, Guide and Doom are at the beginning of your phase versus the Witchfires, which will come along later. So you're more likely to peril during a Guide or Doom, and then you remove a warp charge, which will then prevent you from doing your further psychic powers in your shooting phase. So it's all cool. But we'll discuss this later. And also, some psychers, like Eldrad, have the ability to renew warp charges and give themselves more after they've been using them on a 5+, which is pretty sweet. But we'll get more into that in the next section. So thank you very much for watching this video. Please like the video, comment in the comment section down below, and subscribe to my channel if you already haven't done so. It really does help a lot. And stay tuned for the next part, in which I will be discussing the HQ choices for the new Eldar Codex. Till then, this is Jay saying, happy painting, everyone.